What's up, everybody? So today, it's getting late, but we just finished up some general maintenance stuff. You know, the usual. Couple oil changes, things of that nature, you know, stuff that's really not all that interesting. But today, what we're going to be doing is, you guys know by now that I read every single comment that you guys post. I also try to respond to every single comment that you guys post. And the reason I do that is because a lot of you guys have really, really good ideas about what you want to see. And of course, as a YouTube creator, I want to give you what you want to see. Just makes sense, right? And I enjoy doing it. I enjoy teaching, I enjoy learning, and I enjoy a lot of that stuff. So today what we're going to do is we dug into the readers' comments, or viewers' comments rather, not readers, because you can't read a video. It's kind of weird unless it's all text, and then it's just a boring video. So what are you going to do? But anyway, we dug into the viewers' comments and basically found one that asked if I could explain to you guys how a voltmeter works and how to use a voltmeter properly. So that is what we're going to do today. I'm actually going to take you guys down to the table, so you won't get to see my pretty face for the entire video, but we are going to show you how to use a digital voltmeter properly. And this will give you a lot of knowledge on how to use one properly and how to use one to troubleshoot electrical issues in your car. Not only troubleshoot electrical issues in your car, but help you to install things like HID headlights and stereo systems and stuff like that. Having a voltmeter is absolutely key when you're doing anything electrical, and there's just a ton of stuff you can do with it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my fluke meter, we're going to put it down on the table, I'll get you guys set up, and we'll go over how to properly use it. Alright, so here we are. Now I apologize in advance if the camera gets a little shaky, because I'm actually doing this through the camera. So it makes for a very interesting, because my hands look huge. But this right here is a Fluke 73 multimeter. Now you'll hear these referred to as VOMs, which is a volt ohm meter. This one is a DVOM, or a digital voltmeter. So they're pretty much going to all operate exactly the same. And what we're going to do is we're going to go over the placement of these cables. We're going to go over what the different dials mean, what the display means, and give you guys a better understanding of how to utilize one of these meters to help yourselves. So basically what we're looking at right now is we've got two buttons on this entire meter. Number one is the rotational button that turns it on and off. The second one is this little button in the middle that has some other functionality, and that functionality is actually listed right here. And it is basically to set it in manual range or auto range. And if you hold it for 1 second, it goes into auto range, where it'll automatically detect what you're measuring and it'll range appropriately. Now, most multimeters work pretty much identical to this one. There's a lot of them out there that have, you know, 500 different things that you can do with them, and you'll only ever use 2 or 3 of them. But some of them do frequency, some of them can measure temperature, some of them have inputs for temperature probes. Some of them, I've even seen them do relative humidity and a few other odds and ends. But we're going to be going over just a simple, everyday voltmeter that you can pick up pretty much anywhere. Now, this happens to be a Fluke, so this is not a cheap meter. This one's probably about $350 to $375 US dollars. But it's something I needed. I needed it to be absolutely accurate. Alright, so the first thing we're going to get into is the placement of these cables. You're going to see there's 4 different spots you can put these. Now, there actually is only one spot for the black cable, and that would be the common lead. Now, this is always going to be your negative lead. Then there are 3 other spots on here. One of them says volts, ohms, and diode check. The other one says 10 amp, and the other one says 300 milliamp. So now, what you're going to do is, depending on what you're going to measure, like right now we have this big Autopart International battery behind us, we're going to measure the voltage of that as our first test on this meter. And we want to say, okay, we want to measure voltage, so we're going to make sure that our positive is in our voltage hole, and that our common is in our negative common hole. If we were to put one of this red cable into the 10 amp port or the 300 milliamp port and put it across the battery, we'd be trying to measure the current that this battery could put out, and potentially we could severely damage this meter. Now, most of them have an internal fuse, but I'll tell you what, you blow that fuse and they're impossible to find. Even this one, this fluke meter, I've had this for probably 15 years, and I rewired the inside of it to use a regular automotive fuse because I blew the fuse once and I couldn't find another one. So be very careful. You need to make sure that it's in volts when you're measuring voltage. Now, we want to measure the voltage of this 12 volt battery. This 12 volt battery is 12 volts DC. So if you look on the face of the meter here, you have volts and you have a little squiggly line. Now that squiggly line is always going to denote AC voltage. So if you're measuring AC voltage, that's what you want to select. In our case, we're measuring DC voltage, which is what you're going to be measuring anytime you're doing anything with a car, is going to be your DC voltage. So we're going to switch this meter to DC voltage, which is the flat line, direct current, hence that, and this is alternating current, why it's got the little sine wave there. This is direct current voltage measurement, so we want to switch our meter on to voltage measurement. Now you'll see it come on and it'll do its little thing, and it'll just kind of be, you know, sitting there doing its thing until we decide to put the positive onto the positive of the battery. And we'll see that this battery is sitting at 12.34 volts. Now this button here, if we push it and hold it, we can select what range we want or resolution. So you see it says 12.3 volts there. Well, if we need to know another decimal place, we hit that button again, 12 volts. Hit the button again, one more time. There we go, 12.35 volts. That's usually the mode that I use it in, just so I know the most about the battery, because sometimes, like when you're doing lithium stuff, 4.29 and 4.20 is a massive voltage difference in a lithium battery, so you need to be very careful with that. So I always go for maximum resolution. So then basically you've got your measurement for voltage. Now you guys can utilize this particular measurement for finding your positive lead when you're installing, let's just say, HID lights, or you're fixing a turn signal, or you want to install a radio and you're looking for the illumination wire. You can put your meter on the wire and then turn your ignition source on and off, turn your key on and off, and see whether or not 12 volts comes up. That's the nice thing about a meter. And the other nice thing about it too is a lot of guys are very quick to use a test light. Test lights are something you can pick up at like Advance Auto and AutoZone and Napa and stuff like that, but the only downfall of a test light is a test light will actually put a pretty decent load on whatever circuit it is you're trying to measure. So if you happen to hit a positive wire in your car that can only supply, let's just say 100 milliamps, and you hook a test light to it and you load that circuit down too much, you can potentially damage something in your vehicle. So utilizing a multimeter like this, you don't put any load on the circuit whatsoever. Now with zero load on the circuit whatsoever, you don't have anything to worry about, and you know that there's a voltage there. So now you can also use this in troubleshooting things like broken wires. And the way that we would troubleshoot, I mean, we've gone over how to measure voltage, so that's pretty easy, but in the way that you would troubleshoot a broken wire in a car, you'd want to connect and check continuity between the two. So we have a setting on this meter right here that shows a little diode. So it's technically diode check. We won't get into that because you're never really checking diodes in a vehicle. But what you'll see here is this little symbol. And this little symbol just basically stands for when the wires touch, it'll make noise. So if we go down to this, which again, you don't ever want to hook this up to any kind of positive voltage because you can damage this meter. So if we take this particular cable, the positive, and we run it over, and I know you guys can't see this because it's not in frame, but I'll bring it up real quick. If we touch this to the other terminal over here, we get a beep, and the meter now says 0. That right there is a dead short. So basically, we know we have continuity in our actual cables here. So if you had a piece of wire that was broken, and we'll just use, you know, this light bulb assembly as an idea, we've got continuity there. If we didn't have continuity, then we could check that wire a little bit back further, see if there's continuity. Then we could go a little bit back further, see if there's continuity. And we could say, okay, we have continuity here, we have continuity here, and we don't have it here. Why don't we have it here? Well, the wire's probably broken somewhere between these 2 points. So no continuity here, I meant to say. Continuity here, somewhere in this area, there's a broken connection, and we can cut that wire apart and figure it out. Now, probably one of the most important things you will ever use this meter for is, let's just say your car, for some reason or another, you park it in the garage, you go out overnight, you come back to the car, it won't start, the battery's dead. So you go, oh, you know what, I have to put a new battery in the car. You go down to the store, you buy a brand new battery, you put the battery in the car, it starts up just fine, you're driving it, everything is good. You'd leave it in the garage overnight, you go out the next morning, it dies. So what do? Okay, well, you know what, maybe my alternator's bad. So you take it down to the shop, they put an alternator in it, $500 later between the alternator and the battery, you take the car home, everything seems fine, the next morning comes around and bingo, the car won't start again. So now you're out $500 when that wasn't even the initial issue. Now, a lot of times, especially with some of these newer cars, they can have electrical issues that cause an excessive drain on the battery when the car is off. Now, every car that's out there that's got any kind of electronics in it has what they call a sleep state and an awake state. Now, when you first get into your car in the morning and you turn on the car, your radio station is the same as what it was, your heat is the same as what you set it at last night, everything is pretty much the same. Well, in order to do that, those computers and the ECU and everything else need to withhold some form of memory, which requires some sort of residual power. Now, on average, most newer cars will draw up to 60 to 70 milliamps of current, which on this meter, if you were measuring current, would be 0.060. That's 60 milliamps of current. I just had a car in here the other day, which you guys saw was the last video on the Acura. That car was drawing 250 milliamps, which is 1/4 of 1 amp. And now if you've got a battery, like this battery is, let's see what the amp hours are in this battery. Let's just say this battery is 100 amp hours, which means that basically you could draw 100 amps for an hour, which is ridiculous because that would just destroy the battery. So you figure half of that, 50 amp hours, so you could draw 50 amps for an hour. Or if you cut that down, you could draw 1 amp over the course of 50 hours. So if the car's sitting for 2 days, there goes the battery, it's dead. So drawing 1/4 of an amp, you get about 48 to 72 hours before the battery is completely dead, depending on the size of the battery. Now, something in like that Acura or that Honda uses a relatively small battery. It's not something that's large enough to deal with a 1/4 amp drain on it for more than 48 hours. So the way to find drains like that is basically what you see here. You disconnect your negative terminal and you hook the negative lead of your meter up to that terminal. Your positive terminal on your battery will still remain hooked to the car. Then you're going to take your positive lead out of the voltage setting. You're going to put it into the 10 amp setting. Switch this to amperage, and again we're using DC, so you look for the flat line, DC amperage, and then you will connect your positive lead to the negative terminal that came off of your battery, so your negative battery cable. So basically what's going to happen is your power is now going to go from your positive to the rest of your car, then from your negative it is going to travel down this wire into the meter, back out of the meter, and then to your battery terminal on your car. Now what this allows you to do is it will allow you to measure how much current is being drawn by the system currently. And we can kind of show you this by utilizing this light bulb. If we hook this light bulb up to our positive terminal on the battery, and then we hook the meter to the negative terminal on the light bulb, see the light comes on and it shows we're drawing 4.7 amps. So with this one light bulb on, this battery would probably last about 4 or 5 hours, and then it would be completely dead. At 4.5 amps, 4.6 amps, like, yeah. So that's quite a bit. But you can see that the meter will tell you how much draw this light bulb has. And then it goes away. And then it comes back. So what you'll see on a vehicle is when you're doing a draw test on a vehicle, excuse me, when you're doing a draw test on a vehicle, what you'll see is when you initially hook up, you'll see the current ramp up, and it'll probably ramp to 5 or 8 amps depending on what's on, if the dome lights are on, if anything's on, or the car just, you know, is repowering all of its electronics. And then it should calm down to about 200 milliamps. And it can stay at about 200 or 300 milliamps for about a half an hour until the car actually calms back down again and goes into sleep mode. And once it goes into sleep mode, the only thing the car is doing at that point is it's monitoring input from your key fobs, it's monitoring the alarm system, it's keeping your radio memory intact, it's keeping your heater memory intact, your seat memories, all that stuff. It will then dump down, once it goes to sleep, to about 40 to 60 milliamps. And when it's in the 40 to 60 milliamp range, that battery will last 2-3 weeks before it goes dead. So the newer cars tend to draw a little bit more. And yes, if you leave a car sitting for 2 or 3 weeks, it is absolutely 100% normal to have a battery go dead in that time frame. I know in my BMW, it's got so many electronics in it. It has a large battery like what's in front of us here. And it takes about 3 weeks, and then the battery will be completely dead and I'll have to recharge it. So that is definitely a problem with the new cars. But that is one way with this meter that you can troubleshoot an electrical draw like that. Now you can utilize this meter for a ton of other stuff that we won't really get into because it's not necessarily that important. And it's not important for this particular application that we're going over now, but you can test, you know, normal everyday home current. You can test your wall outlets. You can do a bunch of other stuff. Now, the only thing that I wish that this meter had, and I'm not sure if it does or not, but there's a feature on a lot of these called max hold, where it will actually remember the highest voltage that was attained. And I don't remember if this one does it. It might actually do it. Yep, it does. All right, so if we hold the orange button in and we turn it to our desired, what it'll do is it'll maintain the max voltage or the max of whatever you're measuring so that you can see it. So now where this is really important is when you are troubleshooting, let's say, a bad alternator. When you're troubleshooting a bad alternator issue and your alternator decides to just crap out and shoots the voltage through the roof and your lights are blinking on and off and on and off and on and off and all of a sudden starts smoking stuff in the car, well, you can run this and see what the max voltage was that alternator put out. So if you rev the car and the thing goes to 16 volts, you know there's a problem. So that is pretty much all you're going to be doing with a voltmeter. So you don't need to buy a crazy one that's got a million different things on the dial. You can get one that's very simple like this one. Fluke, I know I can highly recommend because they are very, very accurate meters. They are quite expensive, but if you're looking to get into this kind of work and you want to be 100% accurate with what you're troubleshooting, then you absolutely need one of these. And you guys will see me use this a lot. You saw me do it on the Acura. You saw me do it when I explained how a relay works. I use this meter for everything. It has literally been through hell and back. And this is cleaned. This thing was absolutely disgusting a month ago, and then I cleaned it and now it's getting disgusting again. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for this. That's a very good introduction on how to use these meters and what you can use them for. I would definitely recommend picking one up. You can get a cheap one, Harbor Freight, Sears, wherever they sell them. Advance Auto, AutoZone, everybody sells them. I can't necessarily recommend the cheaper ones if you're looking for accuracy, but if you're just looking to troubleshoot broken wires and do basic voltage testing and shit like that, then you'll be fine with just a cheap one. If you're looking to get a little bit more accurate with it and you want to start measuring draw and voltage leak down and stuff like that, you're going to really want a good meter. So if you can afford it, buy a good one. Like I said about this one, I've had it for, God, 15 years. And it's never given me trouble. I've put probably 10 batteries in it, but I've never had an issue with it. 15 years, 300 bucks, it was money well spent. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know I enjoy making stuff like this. It's definitely very enjoyable for me to do so. Let me know if there's anything else you guys want some more in-depth knowledge on, any kind of tools that you see me using that you want to know how to use better, or anything of that nature, and we can go from there. But I wanted to give you guys a lesson on the VOM, the volt ohm meter, just because I know a lot of people are interested in it and may not want to ask the question or embarrassed about asking the question. But when it comes to stuff like this, there are no stupid questions, and there's not even any stupid people. You just really need to get out there, get some information on it, and you'll be good to go. So hopefully now you guys have a good understanding of how to measure stuff with a digital voltmeter, and you can get to troubleshooting that weird electrical problem that you might have in your car. And yeah, let me know in the comments if this helped you out. I'm going to throw a link right about here to the t-shirts we have coming out in about 3 weeks. If you guys want to support the channel, I know I've said this in my live shows, I don't like donations. I don't like people paying me for stuff that they're not getting. So what I've done is, like a lot of other YouTubers out there, I'm going to be selling t-shirts. Eventually we'll have hats and sweatshirts and stuff like that. But if you guys want to support the channel and you want to see me do more stuff and you want to learn more about different equipment, then I need a way to be able to buy that equipment to show you guys. So what I'm doing is basically apparel. So you're going to give me money, yes, but at the same time you're getting something in return. You're getting a shirt and you're getting valuable information, or at least I think it's valuable information. So if you want to support the channel and you want to support me and you like what I'm doing, shoot over to there again, and you know what, pick up a shirt. Like I said, they're about 3 weeks out, so technically if you buy one now, they're pre-order, but we'll be getting them in very shortly. They've been ordered, so they should be ready to go soon. And yeah, as always, like, comment, subscribe. I answer all your comments. I read all your comments. Enjoy the rest of your night. I'm going to stop talking now. I'm going to go probably get something to eat. So I will talk to you guys later. Have a great night.